Okay, so I've got here a cutaway view of my 3D model, and I'm going to use that just to demonstrate how to assign and change your materials with all of these different elements. And I'll start with this wall here, which you can see is in properties a sandstone 450mm wall, and I've used the same wall type for the wall over here on the right, and there are some other hidden walls that are the same. So I'm going to start by just changing this wall only to have a different paint finish on the inside, and I'll leave this wall, which at the moment is the same kind of wall, I'll leave this wall unchanged. And before I go into the materials, I just want to show you a different display. This is on shaded. If I go to realistic, that's going to show the render material. So it's really important to realise with Revit, you have two different sorts of materials. You have the shaded material, which is just the plain colour with a simple pattern that has these lines, sometimes for, in this case, the brickwork. And with the flooring, you have, again, that simple yellow colour with the lines representing the floorboards. Going to a realistic display, you can see the flooring material actually hasn't been set up there. I'm going to show you that in a minute. But then the wall material has an image of some sandstone that's used to create that version of the material. And so that's where some of the complexity arises with materials. But you just have to think about those two different aspects whenever you set up a material. So I'll go back to shaded and then select the wall, and to change the material the best way is to go to edit type, and you'll see then you may need to turn on the preview. I'll just move this over to see the plan, or it may have the section of the wall. I usually prefer the plan, it's easier to look at usually. And so to change the components we need to add an extra layer if we just want the paint on the inside. If I go to edit, you'll see there is just a single layer, and so when you, I'll just go back a step. Okay, so when you click edit next to structure over here, it shows you all of the different components in the wall, and you can at first just ignore those core boundaries. So the core boundary layers aren't actual elements or layers in the wall, you won't see those. So we only have the one layer, and it's that masonry stone material, and it's 450mm thick. So I want to leave that because I want to see the sandstone still on the outside of the wall, and the wall, when the wall's being cut in plan, I want to see that as the main element in the wall. So I still want the sandstone to stay there, but what I want then is to add what they would do in real life if they were going to paint the inside of this wall. They'd plaster it, so I'll insert to add a new layer, which is going to be my plaster. And you can see there it's at the moment set as a structure, so I'm going to move that down to the bottom, and if you're wondering which side's which, it labels it, you can see it there, exterior side at the top and interior side at the bottom. So it always works that way in Revit, which is a really good system. And then the function, there aren't many to choose from, and you'll get used to working these out as you go. The most important ones are structure and finish. So here, finish 1 or finish 2. In this case, finish 1's okay. And then the thickness, I'll just set to 10mm, which is about the thickness of plaster. And so then we can see that layer. It's very thin, but it's then added there to the bottom of the wall. If you zoom in, got that new thin layer, but at the moment the material isn't really set. Okay, so I'm going to hit Browse and go to firstly living on the Graphics tab. Scroll down and see if I can find a material that looks like paint. Now, if your file's anything like mine, you probably won't find many that have that are called paint. So I'm just going to select one like either of these parking materials because they're solid colours. there are ways of making new materials, and people at first sometimes think it's unusual in Revit that you don't use this option very often down below that lets you make new materials from scratch. But the reason is it's a lot more work. So you have to set a material up from scratch if you make it, if you make a new one. But if you duplicate an existing material by right-clicking on the material, you can choose duplicate, and a lot of the setup's already done. Okay, so if I then give my new name, I'll just call it wall paint, and yeah, I'll just do it white for now. Then we have the graphics panel. So if I click on the colour here, that colour swatch lets you choose virtually any colour. It's using the true primaries. I don't know if you've been working with the real primaries or red, yellow, blue, but when you start using software, any program to specify colour, you need to use the true primaries, which are red, green and blue, not red, yellow, blue. Red, yellow, blue's an approximate colour model, so it's not accurate. And red, green and blue is the additive primary. So you can, in other words, make any colour with a combination of red, green and blue. You can also just try to pick a colour roughly from the selector up here, but if you know the exact colour mix, you can always type that in with red, green and blue. So people sometimes aren't aware that you can make any colour using red, green and blue. Do you know what the other primary colour model is? Or the other subtractive? Yeah, exactly. Yep. So magenta yellow is going the other way, and you won't ever see red, yellow, blue in a computer program. So that's if I want a colour, but again I want white, which you can see here on the left you'll get just by taking that slider up and down. So you have a hue no matter how bright your colour is, but if I'm close to white, it doesn't really matter what I've done over here. But it's useful if you want to affect the tone of it, actually. So if you want more of a yellowy white, then that's useful just to choose that first and then adjust the slider there. So that's done. And so then I've got the appearance. And this one, fortunately, is set to cool white, which is close to what I want, but I'm going to make a new one anyway just to show you the process. You need to right-click on this tab to either duplicate or replace. And the simplest option at first is going to be replace. And so then you get the Autodesk material library, which at first will show you the Autodesk folder, which has a lot in it, but I think it's better if you go to the one below, appearance, which has even more. And so if you click on the little arrow next to appearance, you'll see all the little subfolders. And here I'll just scroll down to wall paint. Just going to bring this out so you can see. So we've got those two wall paint materials, glossy and matte. I just want matte in this case, so wall paint matte. And then I'll just go down to one of the white materials. So I don't want cool white, I want just white. And you need to double click to bring that into your material editor. So it's hard to see there because it was a white anyway, but up here you can see the name's now changed. So that's something people often miss. Double click here and then you'll see it change behind the material editor. So I'm going to close this now and then just click OK and OK again. And I've deliberately missed a step just so you can see why you're duplicating at different stages. Right, so I've changed the interior of this wall, but you might remember I didn't change or I didn't duplicate my original wall. So it's called sandstone 450mm, and that was the wall type used by all of my interior, all of my exterior walls. I'll go to my other 3D view, and then you can see these walls here on the outside are all sandstone 450mm. And so that means all of the interiors of those walls, as you can see here, have changed to that white material. And that might be what you're trying to do. But if you just want to change one wall to have a new material on the inside, and I'll do that now, then you need to also duplicate the wall. And that's the step people often miss. And so here, maybe if I go back to edit type, I can start by renaming this wall. So I know it's sandstone 450mm paint interior. And I can even go further and rename again and make it paint interior white. Okay, so if I select one of my other walls that were the same type before, they all now have the same name. So I might want this wall to have a different colour. So if I go back to edit type and just change here, going to edit and then change that wall paint material to a different colour, can you see that all of those walls are going to change? Does that make sense? Something you maybe, once you've done it a couple of times, it maybe will be a bit more obvious why you manage it in this way. So again, I don't want all of the walls to change, I want just the wall that's selected to change. So I need to duplicate the wall. And the problem people I think have is they just go on autopilot and just go and duplicate and don't think about why they're duplicating. And that's really going to take a long time for you to understand if you're not thinking about why. So again, duplicate with the wall type, and I'll call this interior, let's just make it red. So that's my new wall name. Then I'll go to edit again for the structure. This wall still just has a white paint material on that inside layer. So I hit browse there. Now I need to duplicate the material, because if I change this material, it's going to change the other walls because they still use this material. So I need to right click on that new material, or on my material name, duplicate it, and I'll call it wall paint red. Now the material is still white, so I've got to change the colour now to a red. That'll do. Okay, so that's the shading colour. I might just click OK at this stage to show you what's happening there. Okay, so I've changed my wall to a different colour. The other walls haven't changed. This one's still white because it is still, if I select it, it's still sandstone 450mm paint interior white. The red wall has the new name. Well, we can see it's red here in shading, but what about if I go to realistic? It's white. And that's because there's still one last step. If I go back to, well, I'll leave it on realistic. Okay, so if I go back and select that wall, edit type, edit the structure, it's got the wall paint red material, but what have I missed? The appearance tab. So remember, you've got two parts of your material for every material in Revit, so you always need to think about those two parts, whether you want to or not, because again, the graphics is red, but the appearance is still white. So I need to do the same as before, right click, and either duplicate or replace. You'll see duplicate works just as well later on, but I'll do the same as before and choose replace. In the appearance library, I'll go down to, again, wall paint map, and find a red material, and they don't call it Indian red anymore. Let's go for chestnut's pretty close. I'll double click on that, or let's see if this one that's better. Yeah, that'll do. Okay, so I've got my red colour there. You can see it's a bit different to the one I had in graphics, because that's a pure red. So with the appearance, you can still click on the colour swatch to adjust that colour, and I can always just choose the same colour from here, or I could put in my own red, green and blue values. Or you can go to the Pantone colour chart, which has huge range of colours. And so that's done. I'll click OK. You can also set these basic options. So render materials don't always have to have an image. You'll see I'll show you, do a separate video where I'll show you how to add in JPEGs and other images for your textures. But quite often they'll just have a colour and then settings like the level of reflection, whether it's matte or glossy or these other options. And then things like the application. And so you can just choose those from the list, and they do make a difference. And so that's it. I've got the graphics and the appearance matching. And that's another area where people often go wrong, forgetting to do one or the other of those, and then getting a surprise when they go and have a look at things in their model. Okay, so here you can see the wall in realistic has changed. And so I'll finish that video there. I'll give you a chance to try and set a wall material, and then I'll do some other videos on setting materials for different things.